At the family reunion, my aunt sneered. Still stuck as a secretary, huh? The very next day, their $120 million contract required the CEO's approval. You should have seen their expressions when I walked in and took my seat at the head of the boardroom table. Summer Black sat in the corner of the patio, watching her cousin Jared explain his new pizza franchise for the third time that evening. Again, Aunt Linda nodded like she was hearing it for the first time, even though the whole internet already knew Jared had been bankrupt for 6 months. And are Summer still working at that office? Linda's voice cut through the summer air like a knife. Still sorting papers and bringing coffee to the big shots? Summer almost choked on her lemonade. Her mother shot Linda a warning look, but Linda was on a roll. Nothing wrong with honest work, of course, but at your age, sweetie, you should be climbing the ladder. Jared here opened his own business at 25. Dad Frank grimaced and started flipping steaks on the grill with unusual concentration. He always did that when Linda got going, pretended he couldn't hear. Summer set down her glass and smiled. The same smile she used in business meetings when someone tried to explain how computers work to her. You're right, Aunt Linda. Work is work. She stood up, brushing crumbs off her jeans. Actually, I have an important meeting tomorrow. Might have to leave early. On a Monday? Your boss really keeps you on a tight leash. Linda smirked with satisfaction. Remember, at your age, I was already married, not running around someone else's office. Summer nodded and went to help her mom with the salad. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Mike, her CTO. Samsung confirmed the 10 a.m. meeting. Contracts ready for signing. $120 million. The biggest deal in TechFlow Solutions history. 5 years of negotiations, 3 failed prototypes, and finally, a contract to supply quantum processors for Samsung's entire next-generation Galaxy line. Summer? Mom nudged her elbow. You're in the clouds. Sorry, Mom, just thinking about tomorrow. Mom Carol studied her daughter's face. After 30 years of motherhood, she could read Summer like an open book. But the last few years, something had changed. Summer had become closed off, worked a lot, rarely shared details. Maybe you could tell us what you actually do? Carol asked quietly. Linda's right. We don't really know. Summer hugged her mom's shoulders. Tomorrow I'll tell you everything, I promise. Monday started with the Samsung America security guard refusing to let Summer into the building. She stood in the lobby wearing her only business suit, dark navy, bought for her dissertation defense 5 years ago. Miss, I don't see you on the visitor list. Check under TechFlow Solutions. 10 o'clock meeting. The guard scrolled through his tablet again. We have a meeting with Mr. Michael Chen, Chief Technology Officer of TechFlow. He's my deputy. I'm the CEO. The guy looked at Summer like she'd announced she was from Mars. She was 28, looked 23, and her company operated out of a converted warehouse in Portland's industrial district. Finally, it dawned on him to check under Summer's name. The list showed Summer Black, CEO, TechFlow Solutions, 10:00 a.m., Conference Room A. Sorry, Miss Black. Elevators to your right. 42nd floor. Summer stepped into a spacious hallway with glass walls. Through them, she could see conference rooms where people in crisp suits discussed important papers. This was how she'd imagined real offices when she was working from her parents' garage. Mike was already waiting by the conference room entrance. Tall, thin, with perpetually messy hair. In regular life, he looked like a college student, but in a suit he became almost presentable. There inside, 5 of them, including Park himself. Mike nervously adjusted his tie. Summer, maybe. What, maybe? Maybe I should lead the negotiations? They're expecting a man of a certain age. Summer looked at her childhood friend who'd believed in her idea when she was still a student, drawing quantum chip diagrams on napkins. Mike. Who invented the algorithm? You. Who wrote the base code? You. Who convinced Garland to invest the first $2 million? You. Then I'll be the one talking to Samsung. She opened the conference room door. 5 men in identical dark suits looked up. The oldest, an Asian man in his 50s, with perfect gray hair, stood up. Mr. Chen? I'm Mike Chen, Chief Technology Officer. Mike extended his hand. And this is Summer Black, our CEO. Silence hung in the air. The same look as the security guard downstairs. Disbelief mixed with surprise. Ms. Black. Mr. Park shook her hand. Firmly, but not demonstratively. Forgive the confusion. I was expecting. I know what you were expecting. Summer took her seat at the head of the table, spreading documents in front of her. But you're not here because we're 40-year-old men. You're here because our processors are 30% faster than the competition with half the power consumption. Mr. Park sat back down. Interest flickered in his eyes. Demonstrate. Summer nodded to Mike. He pulled 2 laptops from his bag, a standard, Samsung and their prototype, with the installed TechFlow quantum chip. The next 40 minutes passed in technical discussion. Summer spoke the language Samsung's engineers understood, concrete, with numbers and diagrams. No empty phrases about innovative solutions, just facts. The question of production, said one of Samsung's engineers. Can you supply 500,000 chips per month? We built a new facility in Utah specifically for this contract. Capacity, 700,000 per month. First shipments begin 4 months after signing. Mr. Park flipped through documents. The price remains what was discussed with your legal team. Yes, with a 5-year contract and renewal option. Park exchanged glances with his colleagues. We have more questions about technical specifications. Another 30 minutes of details. Summer answered everything, without glancing at papers. She knew these numbers by heart. Every component, every production stage, every line of code. Finally, Park set the documents aside. Miss Black, we're ready to sign the contract. With one condition. Summer's heart skipped a beat, which is, we want exclusivity in the North American market. Your chips shouldn't reach Apple or Google for the first 2 years. Summer thought. This meant turning down potential billions, but guaranteed stability. Agreed. But then the price per chip increases by 15%. 10. 12. Deal. Signing took another 20 minutes. Summer put her signature on the $120 million contract, trying not to let her hands shake. Pleasure doing business, Ms. Black. Mr. Park stood up. By the way, I'm curious. How old are you? 28. And the company? 5 years. He shook his head. At your age, I was still working as an engineer in someone else's office. Good luck to you. After the delegation left, Summer sank into her chair and closed her eyes. Done. They'd done it. From a garage startup to a Samsung contract in 5 years. The phone rang immediately. Mike's voice was barely contained excitement. Summer, we did it! Holy! I know, she laughed, feeling slightly dizzy. I know we did. The team's going crazy. Should I tell them about the bonus structure? Tell them whatever you want. Just, maybe don't mention the exact numbers yet. After hanging up, Summer sat in the empty conference room staring at the Seattle skyline. Her phone buzzed with family messages. Jared, asking if she wanted to grab lunch later. Her mom, checking how her work thing went. And then Aunt Linda. Honey, I hope your boss wasn't too hard on you in that meeting today. Remember, you're doing fine just as you are. Summer smiled and typed back. The meeting went well, thanks. Actually better than expected. That evening, Summer drove to her parents' house, carrying a bottle of champagne and a folder of documents. She found them in the kitchen, Dad doing crosswords, Mom making her famous lasagna. You look different, Carol said, studying her daughter. Lighter somehow. Sit down, both of you. I have something to show you. Frank set aside his crossword puzzle. Everything okay, sweetheart? Summer opened the folder and spread financial statements across the kitchen table. Remember when I started my company 5 years ago? You co-signed that $50,000 loan? Carol's face grew serious. Of course. You paid it back in 18 months. We were so proud. She looked at the papers. Summer, what is this? Financial statements. For TechFlow Solutions. My company. Frank reached for his reading glasses. These numbers, honey, these can't be right. They're right, Dad. We cleared 80 million in revenue last year. The company's valued at approximately 400 million. We employ 312 people. And today, thanks to the Samsung deal, we'll be expanding operations nationwide. Carol stared at her daughter like she was seeing her for the first time. But Linda said, "You let her think." "I let everyone think what they wanted to think." Summer opened the champagne. "When I was getting started, it was safer that way. Less pressure from family to invest or loan money. Less unsolicited business advice. And then it just became easier." Frank picked up the papers with shaking hands. "Summer Ann Black, you own a $400 million company and you've been letting your sister treat you like a secretary." "Yeah." Summer's smile was rueful. "Though technically I do answer my own phone sometimes. File my own papers when my assistant's busy." The kitchen fell quiet, except for bubbling lasagna in the oven. Carol stood up, walked to the window, then turned back to face her daughter. "How long," she asked, "how long have you been hugely successful, while we all thought?" 3 years since we really took off. But even before that, I was doing fine. Better than fine." Summer joined her mother at the window. "I kept meaning to tell you." But then every family gathering became this thing where Linda would make her little comments, and it was almost funny. Watching her lecture me about realistic goals, while I was negotiating multi-million-dollar deals. Carol laughed suddenly, a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, honey, she's going to die when she finds out." "She doesn't have to find out. I'm comfortable with things as they are." "No." Carol's voice was firm. "No, this stops now. She humiliated you yesterday in front of the whole family." Summer was quiet for a moment, then reached for her phone. "Actually, Mom, there is something I've been thinking about." She pulled up an email draft she'd been working on during the drive over. "Samsung's expanding into smart home technology. They need reliable software development partners. Small, agile companies with proven track records." Carol read over her shoulder. "You're offering Jared a contract?" "Linda always says I should help family. So here I am, helping." Summer hit send. "I just emailed him the proposal. It's fair, very fair. But it requires corporate approval from TechFlow Solutions CEO." Carol stared at her daughter. "You're going to make your aunt sit in a meeting with you? As her boss?" "As Jared's potential business partner," Summer corrected. "Jared's actually not bad at what he does. He just lacks capital and connections. This could legitimately help him." Tuesday morning, Summer's assistant buzzed her office. "Miss Black, Jared Thompson is here for his 10:30 appointment. He brought his mother." Summer paused, her pen hovering over quarterly projections. "Both of them?" "Yes, ma'am. Should I ask Mrs. Thompson to wait outside?" Summer considered this. She'd expected Jared to bring Linda. He rarely made major decisions without his mother's input. "No, send them both in. And Sarah? Make sure the main conference room is set up properly. Name plates, water service, the works." 5 minutes later, Jared and Linda entered the glass-walled conference room. Jared wore his best suit, the one from his wedding 8 years ago. Linda had dressed up too, in what Summer recognized as her important meeting outfit, the navy dress she wore to parent-teacher conferences and bank meetings. "Summer," Jared stood awkwardly in the doorway. Wow, this building is incredible. I had no idea you worked somewhere this fancy." Linda's eyes swept the room, taking in the view, the artwork, the mahogany table. Her expression was calculating, trying to piece together how her niece fit into this obvious display of wealth. "Please sit." Summer gestured to the chairs across from her. She'd chosen to sit at the side of the table rather than the head. No need to be theatrical. "Thanks for coming on such short notice. I know this was unexpected." Jared sat down heavily. "Your email was, the numbers in that proposal." He shook his head. "Summer, I have to be honest. My company isn't big enough for a contract like this. We do residential stuff mostly, small commercial projects. Which is exactly why Samsung wants to partner with smaller firms," Summer said. "They're looking for agile developers who can move quickly on specialized projects. Your track record speaks for itself, Jared." Linda finally spoke up. "I'm sorry, but I'm confused. Jared said you sent him this proposal, but surely you're not the one making these decisions? Shouldn't we be meeting with your boss? Summer met her aunt's eyes steadily. I am the boss, Aunt Linda. The silence that followed was perfect. Summer could see the exact moment understanding hit Linda's face, the widening eyes, the slight opening of her mouth, the way her hands gripped her purse. You're, Linda began, then stopped. CEO and founder of TechFlow Solutions. Yes. Summer turned back to Jared, who was staring at her like she'd announced she was from another planet. The Samsung partnership includes a commitment to work with innovative, smaller companies. Your firm fits their criteria perfectly. Linda found her voice. But you're a secretary? Summer smiled. I never said that, Aunt Linda. You assumed it. Jared leaned forward, his business instincts finally kicking in. Summer, Miss Black, I mean. The proposal mentions a $2 million development project. We've never handled anything close to that scale, which is why Samsung wants to provide training and oversight for the first phase. Think of it as a growth opportunity. Summer slid another folder across the table. Everything's outlined in the partnership agreement. Linda hadn't spoken since her last interruption. She sat frozen, her face cycling through expressions: shock, embarrassment, anger, confusion. Summer almost felt sorry for her. The project timeline is 18 months, Summer continued. That gives you time to hire additional developers, maybe upgrade your infrastructure. The advance payment should cover those investments. Advance payment? Jared's voice cracked slightly. $600,000 upon signing. Standard practice for partnerships this size. Linda finally exploded. This is impossible. Summer, this is some kind of joke. You cannot be running a company that offers... She gestured wildly at the papers. Companies like this don't just appear. I've known you since you were in diapers. Summer's voice stayed calm. You've known what I've chosen to show you, Aunt Linda. Just like you've chosen to show me at every family gathering that you think I'm wasting my potential by not being more ambitious. Jared was reading through the contract, his expression growing more amazed by the page. Summer, this is real? You actually have the authority to offer this? I have the authority to offer much more than this, Jared. Summer stood up. But let's start here. Take the contract home. Review it with a lawyer. Call me if you have questions. She walked to the door, then turned back. One more thing, Jared. This offer stands on its own merits. Don't take it as family charity. Samsung doesn't care that we're related. They care about innovation and reliability. As they prepared to leave, Linda grabbed Summer's arm. We need to talk. Privately. Of course. Summer nodded to Jared. Take care of the contract. Sarah at reception can validate your parking. After Jared left, Linda paced the conference room like a caged animal. How long? She demanded. How long have you been successful while letting me make a fool of myself? You made yourself look foolish, Aunt Linda. I just didn't correct your assumptions. But why? Why didn't you tell us? Do you enjoy watching me embarrass myself? Summer sat back down, suddenly tired. It wasn't about you. It was about peace. At every family gathering, you had to comment on my life, my choices, my failures. It was easier to let you think what you wanted than deal with lectures about getting above my station. Linda stopped pacing. Getting above your station? Summer, when have I ever said that? 3 Christmases ago, when I mentioned a business trip to Tokyo, you said some people needed to accept that not everyone gets to live like they're in a movie. 2 years ago at Grandpa's birthday, when I couldn't make it because of work, you said I needed to remember what really mattered. Last Easter, when Mom mentioned I was house hunting, you said I should be careful about overextending myself on a secretary's salary. Each memory landed like a separate blow. Linda's face crumpled. I thought I was being helpful, realistic. You were being condescending. The words came out harder than Summer intended. But that's not why we're here today. I'm here because Jared is genuinely talented, and this is genuinely a good opportunity for everyone involved. Linda sat down heavily. I don't understand. How did this happen? When you were little, you were so ordinary. Not like your dad with his engineering degree. Not like Jared with his scholarships. You just read books and built computers in the basement. Maybe that's where I learned about building something from nothing. They sat in silence for a moment. Through the window, Portland spread out before them. Millions of people working, building, living their complicated lives. I owe you an apology, Linda said finally. Many apologies. You don't owe me anything, Aunt Linda. But you might owe Mom an apology. She spent years trying to keep peace between us. Linda nodded. Will you come to dinner next Sunday? I promise I won't lecture you about anything. Summer smiled. Only, if you promise not to brag about me either. I'd like to keep things simple.